All right, Austin, are you all set? We'll go ahead and kick off here. It's just a minute after the top of the hour. First and foremost, thank you all for joining. Thanks for taking the time today. This meeting is being recorded. That's wonderful because you'll be able to share that content with colleagues here in the near future. We always get that in a few days after the event. Let's see, just upcoming presentations. Just a reminder that on the 4th of August, Andrew Schaefer, he's going to be presenting on just some philosophies around DevOps and DevSecOps. So looking forward to that thought leader joining us on the 4th of August. That's kind of outside of the normal routine. It's typically the 4th Tuesday of the month, so it's a special event. But then on the 25th of August, we are having, who is it? Noah. Andrew Schaefer's coming in on the 4th, and then the Office of Coastal Management is coming in, Stephen Benner. So looking forward to hearing from them. Let's see. Just a reminder about what we're all about. This venue and this community of practice is all about sharing what's happening with DevOps across government. Technical and management lessons learned. This can include your successes as well as the things you all learned from, those small failures that allow you to do things differently and better as you move forward. As always, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I'll be using that after the presentation to facilitate the Q&A. And just a reminder, there's an opportunity for discussion beyond this event in our listserv as well as in the Slack channel. I will share information related to that in our chat window here in just a minute. And again, this video is going to be posted after the event, so go ahead and share that at leisure. And otherwise, we are really looking forward to hearing Andrew Bryan today talk about the U.S. Air Force's Platform One. So without any further ado, Austin, over to you, sir.
Okay. Oh, hey, everybody. Captain Austin Bryan here from the Platform One team. I have the pleasure of serving as their COO, mostly straddling some tech stuff, but also on the business side. I work for Major Rob Slaughter on a day-to-day basis, who's our director, and we kind of execute the DevSecOps vision that Nick Shalon, our chief software officer, has for the Air Force. And also, as of late May, we were signed on a memo by the DoD CIO being labeled as the preferred DevSecOps provider for the DoD. Not that we are mandated, nor do we ever want to be mandated. We always want to work with people that find value with us, but I structured this conversation really to spend about 5 minutes on what Platform One is, which I would love to talk about for hours and hours, especially on the technical side, being an engineer myself. But I wanted to save about 10 minutes or so to go through some of the more leadership, management, culture, process, people things that I've learned. I've been an engineer in the Air Force now for just shy of 10 years, and I think performing and fielding IT projects in the DoD space is very unique and challenging, as I'm sure most of the people on this call know, especially when it comes to our cybersecurity accreditation processes and air-gapped environments. So I want to spend some time focusing on how do you make this work in the DoD? Like, how do you really do DevOps in the DoD? So hopefully we'll get some of that, and then I'll try to save at least 10 minutes for people to ask questions. So with that, I'm going to jump straight in. So what is Platform One, right? So Platform One, it's made up of a bunch of, it's really a small government team. I'm not going to go through each person individually, but there's about 6 of us, maybe we might be at 8 now on the government side, and then probably about 170 or so software developers that range from, UX people, product managers, software developers, DevSecOps engineers, Kubernetes SMEs, SREs, cloud architects. We really try to stay very lean on the management structure and have almost everybody that works for us be on keyboard, and I'll get into some of those specifics. But the other cool thing about Platform One is we're not officially a program yet, although I think that will happen by FY22 as our own program of record with the POM 4 budget. But right now, we are basically a coalition of the willing that our leaders gave us up to execute Nick's vision from the chief software office. And so we have people really made up from a number of different offices. There was actually more, but we're starting to consolidate more under AFLICMIC, Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, under the Cyber and Cryptological Systems Division, where I work. But we're really spread across the whole country, and it's a coalition of the willing and people who are kind of fed up with the DoD software delivery process and wanted to do something about it and make things better for software developers across the DoD. So a little bit of background: we didn't really get started until the fall of 2019. It was a merger of DevOps teams between the Unified Platform Program Office, which I came from, and the Space Camp team out in Colorado Springs. They had a lot of great tech stuff going on that they were delivering to SMC. HNC, I think for the most part, brought the ability to scale things from an acquisition perspective. But I do think we brought some technical resources to bear there as well. And we merged those two teams together to kind of OpCon report to Nick Shalon from a technical perspective. And so we got started in September of last year. And like, as I mentioned, the preferred DoD DevSecOps provider. We didn't really have any of our own funding until January of 2020. And after that, we were able to stand up environments, and at impact level 2, 4, and 5, we actually have our initial deployments done on Secret as well, on SC2S, and then and also on Fences, which is a SAP DoD cloud, and everything else. Sorry, let me close my Signal chat here so you guys don't get all my pop-up messages. And then, looking at TS after that. So we're trying to provide a DevSecOps kind of platform as a service layer at all classification environments. And we've made some pretty good progress getting those stood up and getting app teams deployed. Initially at IL2 and 4, but now have IL5 Secret on SC2S and Fences available as well. We work with a lot of major programs. We've talked to a lot. I would say that our funding has only come from a few, but some of the people we work with are the Ground-Based Strategic Deterrent Program Office, Unified Platform, where I came from, the Air Battle Management System, which feeds JADC2, which is kind of the connect sensors to shooters effort across the entire DoD. We work with F-35, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, some Navy program offices. So we really had a lot of touch points between some people who were early adopters of the way we do DevSecOps. Normally, I would spend some time on why DevSecOps is needed in the DoD, but I think for this community, everybody knows why we're doing DevSecOps, or you wouldn't be part of the community of practice. The numbers are on the right side that show, based on a Defense Innovation Board study back in May of 19, how poorly we field software, and we can't keep up with commercial industry and our adversaries. So, DevSecOps is the solution to these problems, and implementing it in the DoD space is really what this community practice is all about and what we try to do. So from where we fit in, from a Platform One perspective, it's really that middle tier of the tech stack. We partner with infrastructure teams like Cloud One or others in order to deploy our platform. And our platform is made up of basically 3 main components. We have a Kubernetes-based platform that has an ATO that does the container orchestration and is configured for multiple cluster and high availability. And then we deploy a service mesh alongside of that. Right now for us, that's Istio, another Google started open source project to do a lot of the actual security stuff for the ATO when it comes to mutual TLS encryption, managing east-west traffic, deploying a security sidecar stack from all of the containers. And then on top of those 2 things, we layer on cloud native computing foundation, Kubernetes-based continuous integration, continuous delivery applications that then basically orchestrate your code check-ins through different linters, test code coverage, static and dynamic code analysis, pen testing. We automate that entire process so that you can actually code commit, meet all the RMF controls that your AO needs, and then deploy into a production enclave. So if the mission owner wants to, you can literally go from, once you've earned a certificate to field underneath the continuous ATO, you can go from code commit to code deploy. And we actually have teams doing this. I'll show some metrics at the end. We've enabled a couple mission apps now to do this, and also a lot of what we consider our production apps that enable software developers to the point where we're committing code into production 10 to 20 times a day, which is really a credit to not only the DevSecOps tech stack, but also the policy and how we implement it and how we get away with that stuff with our AO. Not get away with it, that makes it sound negative, like we're speeding, but we're not. How we're implementing automation through the CI/CD pipeline to do a lot of the RMF checks at the application layer. Just talking through our products real quick. This is a very over generalized discussion of what we offer, but we have 3 main products. Iron Bank, which is the trusted supply chain of all of our hardened containers, which you can go to ironbank.dsop.io and register. You can see those containers. That's for people who want to come along and piggyback some of those or contribute, or vendors who want to be part of it. Then we have Big Bang, which consumes those hardened containers into infrastructure and configuration as code. That's the core options that you can kind of choose to deploy your own software factory out of the box. And we do major releases of Big Bang every 6 weeks, usually focused on one of our key ACAT1 customers, like the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, F-35, GBSD, adding tools to the instantiation that they want. And then the ABMS, All Domain Common Environment, which is really our DevSecOps PaaS, is one that we actually inflate and operate on behalf of other product teams so that they can use something that's a full up PaaS offering, whereas Big Bang is more for a customer who wants to inflate their own software factory based on our work, inherit our ATO, and then build upon or extend those services and scale it out their own way to their developers. So that's kind of the three main things that we do for people. We do have a couple other kind of hanger-on services that people have found value in that maybe we didn't expect when we first launched Platform One. The biggest one that some people have probably heard of is our collaboration tools. We offer, during the coronavirus telework stuff, we offered Mattermost within 28 hours of the request. We deployed it to a new enclave with the right protections to allow BYOD, so bring your own device, IL4 access through multi-factor authentication, so non-CAC IL4 BYOD. And that is actually scaled adoption. I think we're up to about 60,000 users now, including about 15,000 that are active daily. Doing chat and file sharing at the IL4 level with BYOD, which is pretty cool. And since then, at the IL2 level, we've added GitLab, Jira, Confluence, and Jitsi. For those that don't know, Jitsi is a BTC capability like Zoom. And we will be launching the rest of those at IL4 and then 5 as well over the coming weeks. And then, so those collaboration tools actually reside on the ABMS All Domain Common Environment. We just offer those as kind of almost like SaaS offerings internal to DoD. And then the other thing we've done is what I would consider is a lot of enablements, both from teaching people how to operate under a continuous ATO or deploy a platform or teach people how to move rapidly in acquisitions. We do a lot of phone engagements and Ask Me Anything engagements to teach others how to do what we do. And so we enjoy doing that, but it does take away from delivering on deadlines we have for Mr. Shalon and other programs. Moving into where we kind of fit in the world. And again, I want to get into some of the lessons learned and not really what Platform One is, but happy to answer questions on either when we get there. Software ecosystem, we reside on an IaaS provider like Cloud One, depending on the classification levels, deploy our platform, the Kubernetes, the Istios, the Istio, the CI/CD pipelines, and then really enable program or software developers across multiple factories or programs to then do software development, dev, test, and prod across our environments at each impact level. This is an old snapshot that's probably several months old now that could be updated, but this is just to give an idea pictorially of all the different people we work and collaborate with. Despite what people may hear out in the wild, I like to think, at least at the engineering level, we have a very good working relationship with the Kessel Runs of the world and everybody else. In fact, a lot of our code base in Repo One has just been a collaborative effort of many who make merge requests against those main projects, and then we work through together to accept those back upstream and help others in the DoD. So I always like to hammer home that there's nothing super special about Platform One. We're really just trying to drive the belly button of DoD DevSecOps so that we can collaborate on common problems and quit paying people to solve the same ones over and over again with our taxpayer dollars. All right, so I wanted to spend most of my time here, and I already ate up a lot of it, but just on what I would consider some lessons learned and what I really think it takes to deliver software in a DevSecOps manner within the DoD. The first of which I want to talk about, which really gets into just being a truly lean organization. I mean, if you go read any DevSecOps or Agile book, it talks about lean management, just like it adopted from lean manufacturing from Toyota. The idea is everybody should be responsible for the product and the quality of the product, and then we should minimize overhead as much as possible. The middle managers or management like myself is honestly considered waste, and I totally believe that. We try to get teams as efficient as possible, and I want to talk a little bit about that taxonomy. So, we stay very adherent to the quote unquote 2 pizza team rule, 8 to 12 people at most per product team. With about 190 people, only 12% of our workforce is what I would consider support personnel, most of which are, people like myself or Rob or our acquisition team. Not that they are middle management or waste at all, but just the necessary pieces you need from contracting, financial management, and cost in order to put things on contract and move quickly. And then 88% of our workforce is just a smattering of, in general IT skill sets. So DevSecOps engineers, Kubernetes subject matter experts, Istio experts, go up and down the line. But basically, what makes up a product team, they're all technical or hands-on people. Outside of maybe the project manager, the product managers, sometimes they're not as on keyboard as others, but they definitely are in the code base every day and working with teams to plan effectively. And just for situational awareness, really is that our technical direction comes directly from the Air Force Chief Software Officer, and our acquisition authority resides with C3INN from a program executive officer standpoint out in Boston at Hanscom Air Force Base. Just visually wanted to show, we recently reorganized as we scaled over the past 3 months or so. We've probably went from about 40 people to 190. Which was a major challenge for myself and Rob and Jeff and Matt and other key leaders in our organization to figure out how do we still stay lean and efficient. When we came up with this value stream and guild concept, it's not very far off of any other agile framework you want to choose. And I'm sure it looks like the flavor that you implement wherever you are, but this is the nomenclature that our culture and process developed. We basically have it structured so every single value stream can deliver to prod without any external dependencies outside of that one product manager. And then there's a lot of kind of sub value streams or sub teams that make up different pieces of that value stream, but still controlled. And what we found is why this was necessary is because we needed our product managers at the value stream level to be able to really own priority. When you have external dependencies, you can be the deployment team and have 3 different projects tell you that you should be their number one priority, when in reality they don't have control over that. So now we have deployment people, cyber people, pipeline DevOps people spread across all value streams, so that one project, one value stream can own their product end to end and holistically, and their release cycles, their customer feedback, and all of it. So you'll see vertically, we kind of have people organized into guilds to keep best practices and standardize across the value streams that have a cadence and ceremonies that go with it. And then we have the value streams themselves that deliver the product on the frequency that Rob and Nick and myself and others require to deliver on our customer needs. I think this is one of maybe the most interesting ones of the slide deck is how we function as a program. I really like to think one of the reasons we stay innovative or fast is because we don't have palmed for money, which is kind of great, honestly. So we have a little bit of what I call a corporate investment, about 20% of our budget this year from a below threshold reprogramming out of another program element. But 80% of the other money we've quote unquote raised from investments from programs who see value in us. And so we really have a deliver or go out of business mantra, just like a small company would. If people don't see value in us, they won't MIPR money, and we won't have people, and we won't deliver anything. But when people do find value, we can scale up based on those MIPRs and the contracts we put in place. So we've structurally on the back end, on the business side, created a way to force a startup feel. And then from an acquisition perspective, we use a mix of our DevSecOps basic ordering agreements that we've put out that anybody in the DoD can use, by the way, which happy to answer questions there too. And then a lot of small business partnerships through what AFWorks has done to get innovative companies in the door. We also have a couple partnerships with PIAs and 8As. And then, through that process of acquisitions, we do a portfolio review, kind of the paper review like we always do, but then we added a part, just like a live pitch would be, with oral presentations to make sure that people aren't just good at writing proposals, which happens in the DoD, right, with our contractor and our defense industrial base, but can actually answer questions when they make it to that second round of evaluations. And then, maybe most importantly, we hire for services, not products. And then we put different contractors within one product team. So we never, that's how we really avoid vendor lock, is we create kind of competition at the product team level. And we hire people that culturally and attitude-wise fit in with what we do. And because I promised I wanted to leave 10 minutes for Q&A, I'm just going to make a couple sentence comment on each of these last 2 slides. Biggest thing is, we view our organization as an upside down pyramid. We don't have a hierarchy. The product, we're here to support the product teams. That's who the platform is here for. And those of us like Rob, myself, and the acquisition teams, we're really just enablers that are here to support the platform team. So, through architectural decision review records, all the technical decisions are made by the product teams across them, and we put them public in GitLab. And we have our teams collaborate and make those decisions on tool and architecture together. And Rob and I or Jeff or Matt never downward direct a specific tool or architecture. which I think is absolutely key. And you need government leadership at some levels of your organization to manage that. Otherwise, you can kind of get into the vendor lock or one side of the world story sometimes. And then lastly, I just wanted to show some quick metrics on is this actually working? What do we have to prove it when it comes to like DORA metrics, right? So in our common environment that I spoke of, that third product, we have over 50,000. This is actually a little bit old too. We have closer to 60,000 users. Not all are software developers. Some of those are just using collaboration tools, but we have a few hundred software developers now using DevOps to deploy to production. Based on being on Kubernetes and cloud native has really helped all the non-functional requirements, all the ilities. I mean, our availability and downtime is really good. We have several DevSecOps applications hosted. It's probably more closer to 15 now. We just fielded our second mission application last week. We have about 4 or 5 more about ready to deploy on the classified side, which is a partnership between us and the product team, not something we do alone. Our Platform One team's average deployment frequency is about 20 times per day into production on different projects. And it takes us very little time to make minor changes, and bigger ones, a lot of times more is design and research than it is actual software development, but we can get those out pretty quickly too. And so I just wanted to point out that I truly believe in this stuff. It's been a long time in the making to get to this point for on the Platform One side, leveraging work from other software factories, but also kind of pooling it together at a central location. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there, so I at least save some time for Q&A, so Brian can MC some of these over on this side.
Yeah, Austin, thank you. Great presentation. We got 7 or 8 questions here, so folks are very interested to hear your perspectives on a few things. First question is, to scale this, are you looking at an agile scaling framework like SAFe or less?
We don't use scaled agile. We were born out of kind of the product team level XP practices. Some teams were using Kanban. We don't actually dictate, but we do make people, that when going back to the slide, since I'm still sharing my screen, each sub team here has their own XP driven practices and ceremonies. And then the product managers at the value stream level have what we call our big rocks board, which is like epics or initiatives, and they sync with their PMs at the sub team level. So it is kind of like a less framework when you start compiling it up, but we manage that all through Jira boards with the projects linked together.
Great. Next question. I'd like to know more about the Istio security sidecar stack. Do you add some more details to that?
Yeah, and I'm by no means the smartest guy on our side on the tech side, but it's a couple of the pipeline tools like Twistlock. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the tool. So we just deployed StackRox too for the first time. So there's a couple different ones you can swap in and out that do the continuous monitoring part for the security sidecar stack. Those are required as part of our continuous ATO to be attached to the containers that get deployed into production VPCs. Happy to take an email one-off for people that want to know a lot more and dive into that. I can connect you with our CISO, Matt Houston, who's very brilliant on this stuff and has really helped design a lot of that. So any more than that would probably be best to save for kind of a one-on-one conversation, especially bringing in some of our cybersecurity folks.
Yeah, and I believe that question is coming in from one of our leads over at cloud.gov. So maybe we could have just a guild meeting on that too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's see. What were the technical and regulatory approaches used for ATO inheritance?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our AO, we started with Lauren Knausenberger under this Chief Innovation Office, and then we moved to the Rapid Cyber AO, who's Danny Holtzman, who actually has a lot of boundaries now. Danny doesn't follow a lot of the older practices, but he has a very specific template that he requires to get an ATO from him. So structurally we inherit things from the IaaS provider like Cloud One. And then we implement the platform controls through Kubernetes and Istio for the most part. And then a lot of the application layer under the CATO gets implemented by an accreditation of the team, the CI/CD pipeline itself, and the phase gates. And then we have delegated authority at Matt Houston's level as the CISO to make what we call certificate to field decisions at the application layer. And then as long as you deploy that application to a production stack that is running a DevSecOps reference architecture compliant stack, which was signed by the CIO a while ago and is out on Mr. Shalon's website, as long as you're going to a stack in production that is running that, you can actually take that CTF and the ability to field and deploy to any compliant stack that's out there. I don't know of many others besides ours. I'm sure other people are working towards it, or maybe there are in some pockets that I haven't talked to. But that is more or less how the inheritance works up the stack.
Great, thank you. Pertaining to existing, uh, pertaining to existing applications, does Platform One conduct technical assessments to determine a good fit versus not worth the investment to move to Platform One?
Yeah, absolutely. That's where Rob and I spend a lot of our time. I feel like we've become kind of solution architects or technical sales leads almost internal to the government. We're just a couple officers in the Air Force. We're not here to make money, and so we don't want to work with people who don't find value. And sometimes, and this is not a knock to say that not everything needs to be containerized and running on Kubernetes, right? Although that is a kind of a sexy and newer architecture that a lot of people are adopting, it doesn't make sense for some DoD use cases, and so we get into conversations a lot, and that's kind of the initial, after you get past kind of the AMA level and a one-on-one with myself or Rob or a couple other people we're training up. We basically do that assessment of walking through where we think what product fits you best. And sometimes that's Big Bang or the common environment. And other times it's, our partnership with Cloud One is really good because they support a lot of the other types of access and credentialed ways into an ATO and to move to the cloud. And sometimes that's a better use case for people. So we have a very tight relationship with Cloud One, and we kind of pass customers back and forth a lot of times based on architecture of what they're trying to bring.
Great. Next question. What cloud infrastructure and resources are necessary to support DevSecOps in an IL4 environment or higher?
Yeah, so that is a really great question too, which is probably an hour deep dive in and of itself. So platform, I didn't touch on it, but Platform One developed something that we call the Cloud Native Access Point, the CNAP. It's actually a DoD CIO approved alternate to the DISA CAP. And it does a lot of things with some of the the more traditional tools you've seen before, like F5 and Palo Alto, but it also uses AppGate both on the endpoint and in the cloud to do endpoint policy enforcement. And so any of our IL4 development requires AppGate to enforce policies on the endpoint, so you can BYOD. But it does still have kind of the same level of stringencies that you would almost from a GFE issued from your local base in the standard desktop configuration, although there's a little bit more flexibility than that. We'd really have to peel back and dive into the architecture of CNAP, but that's the systems that make up CNAP, including AppGate, are how we enable IL4 and higher access to both software development and also those collaboration tools that I was talking about that you can kind of use as a SaaS. And within that, I should mention too, one of the key pieces is our instance of KeyCloak. It is a true single sign-on across IL2, 4, and 5. So based on the domain you register with, it actually federates you access to the right VPCs at those different protection levels. And you can log in once with your CAC or through multi-factor authentication, depending on the IL level you're accessing. And you can actually then federate into all those services during your session that's valid, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff around that we've done that Matt Houston is also the subject matter expert on. So happy to take a one-off meeting on that too with myself and Matt, or honestly maybe just Matt, because he's been kind of the architect of that with Nick.
Great. And we are almost out of time here. So last question. This is from the VA. How do you structure contracts to combine staff from multiple companies on the same team?
Yeah, that is an awesome question. And Captain Victoria Weiler, who's one of the smartest individuals I've ever met, she's a 64 Papa in the Air Force, a contracting officer herself. And we have her, we're really lucky to have a contracting officer with an unlimited warrant who gets DevSecOps and is applying those principles to contract vehicles and thinks through how to structure them. Again, it'd probably be, I'd recommend you get an introduction with me, and I can get her talking to you. But the way we basically do it is on the BOAs, we've been able to solicit multiple teams of the same skill, of similar skill sets when it comes to what makes up a product team. And then we make multiple awards off that one solicitation to multiple vendors. And then when we onboard them inside the actual team, once they're on contract, we actually have what we call our sorting hat process, to borrow from the Harry Potter nerds of the world. And we actually then mix up contractors per product team under an ANAS product manager or a government team lead, who kind of oversees that actually executes the way that we architected it and had it envisioned. So I know that's probably not a detailed enough answer for the amount of time we had left, but happy to connect you with Victoria. I would say if there's two keys to success in DevSecOps and structure, I would say it's having at least 3 or 4 people who really know DevSecOps, both the principles and the technology when it comes to CNCF tools, Istio, and Kubernetes. So you need a few of those government people, which is really hard to find. And then you need to contract for services and mix up contractors per team. And if you can do those two things, I think you'll find pretty rapid success in this space. And I think a lot of teams have still not implemented those practices, in my opinion.
Wow, that sounds like an awesome additional presentation, maybe in the near future. That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
honestly, Brian, I recommend you reach out to Victoria Weiler. I think her and Lieutenant Cody Paul have run that on our side, and I think they could give a half-hour presentation on what I would consider agile and DevSecOps contracting methods. And I think there's a lot of business types of the world who would really benefit from those conversations.
Absolutely. I am going to do that. And there has been just a whole lot of questions. So, Austin, if you don't mind, I'm going to include you on an email with a listserv listing those out. Would you mind taking a moment to write some of those out afterwards? And I am sure folks want to connect with you over email anyway for likely some one-on-ones.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, feel free to add me to the listserv and call it out, and I will answer things as I can as they come across.
Great. Otherwise, thank you so much. Just for the audience, thank you all for joining. Thanks for all the energy and terrific questions. Um, just a reminder, on the 4th of August, Andrew Schaefer is going to be coming in to present. So that's a special event. We'll be sharing more on that over the listserv and online. So thank you all. Sure appreciate it. And have a wonderful day.